This is Anything But, the politics-free podcast where you can come for a short time each week to get away from the madness of the world while we carry on as though nothing important or noteworthy is happening. I'm Heather.
And I'm Ryan.
Welcome to our bubble.
Welcome to our bubble.
So, Ryan, you had a big burning question for me.
I did. If you do something only thinking about yourself, but what if you end up doing that action and it benefits other people, is it still a selfish accident? A selfish action?
I think it depends on your own feeling in the matter. The initial intention is important, yes, and then how you feel after. Because when you asked me that question, I immediately thought of an instance in my life where I volunteered for a week straight to help the school nurse with everything possible because that person that was a school nurse was also over dormitory assignments. And in case we haven't mentioned it, it might not have made it into an episode. We both went to boarding school. Our parents worked at the school, so we I lived in the dorms for a time. Ryan, I don't think you ever did live in the dorms, did you?
Not ever.
No, you lived at home with the parents, but I did end up living in the dorms at one point, which I really enjoyed. It was fun. It's like being with your friends 24/7. And when the summer session was coming up, because we also had the benefit of summer school every summer. Yay! Yeah. So I really wanted to be in the dorms, but the summers were really packed there, and there was no guarantee that there was space in the dorms. So I went and volunteered with the full intention that I would be so helpful at every second that she would be forced out of kindness to give me a spot in the dorms. And it worked. Or I don't know if it just happened that there ended up being room or if she made it happen or what, but that was my intention. And it would have not fazed me at all, except another staff member came up to me and said, "Wow, Heather, I just heard that you helped out in the nurse's office for a week for no exchange whatsoever. I've never heard of anyone doing something so kind and wonderful. That was such a great job. What a blessing." I was like, oh, and that sent me on such a guilt trip because I was like,
I love it.
Totally, it was a completely selfish action on my part. I had one intention in mind. So I think in that case, even though it helped tremendously, and it did help.
Right.
It was because it was a selfish act, because I was doing it only thinking of myself. Hopefully those two people don't hear this podcast episode.
Hey, you know what, Heath? It's been how long? Over 20 years? I'm sure they'll forgive you. And they'll probably find it funny.
So what's your opinion of that? Do you think it's a selfish act if you're only thinking of yourself?
I agree. I think it's the initial intention. Last winter, we got snow, which is unusual for us. But I went out, was it last winter? I think it was. The way our driveway works is like you come off the main street and then you have to come down a little hill and then you're in this parking lot and then, there's a tiny little slope in the parking lot. Anywho, I bought like a bunch of salt. There was like no de-icer left, so I ended up buying pool salt. There was just like bags and bags of pool salt in the garden center. So I was like, oh, why isn't anybody using this? This has got to work. So anyways, I grabbed that, salted the whole parking lot because managers weren't taking care of it and I knew snow was coming. So I salted the whole parking lot. And then the next day it snowed. It didn't really help much. Like it kept it like de-iced and de-snowed for a while, but it just came down so heavy that like at one point it was just ineffective.
Right.
But I went out there with a shovel and I shoveled a whole path all the way from the back of the parking lot all the way up the hill to the main street. And I did that solely because I wanted to get out easily. Obviously, it benefited everybody that wanted to drive out of there. And our neighbor said something similar to me as I'm sitting there shoveling the snow. We live in a little townhome. So our neighbor's this elderly lady. And anyway, so she pokes her head out of the door while I'm sitting there shoveling this path. And she goes, Ryan, you were just such a kind human being. Thank you so much. And I was like, oh, yeah, no problem, Mary. Anytime, as I'm like sitting there thinking, like, I'm just doing this for me. Like,
was she the same person who you stopped that fire in her apartment?
Yes.
See, you're not all bad. You saved her from death.
Well, to be fair, I also saved our place from burning down.
Yeah, but, okay, so is that your thought as you're rushing to put out this woman's fire?
Well, no. Yes and no. It was, I was thinking about her and I was thinking about us. I was more concerned about Mary than I was about us at the time because the fire was on her side of the wall. But yes, I was mostly thinking about Mary in that circumstance.
Well, there you go. There you go. And also, look, sometimes somebody does something that's a self-centered act. They're doing it just for themselves. But a lot of people also do. I mean, I've done things just to be nice to people too. So I feel like that balances out.
I agree.
Just in case anyone's like, God, these people are horrible. All right. Well, that's it. That's all we're doing for this episode. Now, that's really short, and sorry about that. Ryan, let's end with our customary advice.
Really think your acts through before you do them. So that way you cannot be selfish about any action that you take when you're just thinking about yourself. Look at the whole picture. That way you can feel better about yourself when you do the act.
Until next time.
Until next time.
And stop.